This show is brought to you in part by the Iron Range Resources and Rehabilitation.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Wall of Power Radio Hour. This is your host, Paul Metsa. I have a great show tonight, and I'm very happy to have my two guests in the studio. One fellow you might have heard a little bit about on AM 950, Professor Richard Painter, who's running as a Democrat for the Minnesota Senate race. The primary is August 14th, so put that on your calendar. And then, of course, if he prevails, and I believe he will, November 8th is the big day. But more importantly, we have his lovely wife, Karen, also, like Richard, a professor at the University of Minnesota. And we're going to talk to her and talk music, politics, family life, and all the rest. Karen and Richard, thank you so much for being here.
We're pleased to be here. Thank you.
Well, I got to ask, how did you guys meet?
We met at Yale. Okay. I was an undergraduate, and Richard was in law school.
Coffee shop, bar, mixer?
Party.
You guys didn't party at Yale, did you?
Only on the weekends.
What were you studying, Karen?
I was studying philosophy and music.
Okay. And Richard, what were you studying at the time?
I was in law school, at the Yale Law School.
What year was that?
We met in 1986.
Okay. So what, but, you know, I can imagine, I did 2 years at Mesabi State Junior College in the Iron Range. I like to refer to it as high school with ashtrays. I went to the University of Minnesota. I dropped out the night before my first finals. So I'm a college dropout. But I believe going to Yale must have been, you had to study all the time.
Getting into Yale is hard, but staying there is not hard.
Okay. Well, what's the key?
What's the key to
staying at Yale?
Staying at Yale. What would you say, Richard?
I'd say doing at least some studying and maybe having some fun.
What did you guys do for fun? That was in Cambridge, right?
In New Haven.
Oh, New Haven. Yeah, right. Harvard's in Cambridge. Okay. So what was a fun weekend? What was a date?
Dates sometimes were only the ice cream shop late at night, so study breaks. But we met at a club that had a few law school students join just to help keep things clean.
Okay.
And Richard was the cleanest, among the cleanest there. So we met at a party there and a few parties at the law school after that.
And so when did you get married?
1987.
Wow.
About a year and a half later, after we both graduated. I graduated from law school and Karen from college. And we were married out in California, where Karen's from, Santa Monica, California.
Is that where you started your home together?
No, San Francisco.
Oh, let's talk about San Francisco in 1987. That must have been fun.
That was. We had a teeny apartment we could barely afford. Richard was a law clerk, and I was a graduate student at Berkeley. And we had, I think, 2 pieces of furniture.
Wow.
Something like that. But on Nob Hill, gorgeous place.
Sure.
Walking up there.
That's probably, I used to love New York City, but it's become so gentrified. But I was in San Francisco about 10 years ago. And it was, I think, the most American, one of the most beautiful cities I've ever been in. And you could walk around at night. I would go to the North Beach to hear jazz and blues. And I was staying with my buddy Ron Hacker, who was a great blues guy. He played at a place, did you ever go to a place called The Saloon on Grant Street, North Beach?
Oh, I think I heard of it. I don't remember if I'd gone there.
According to lore, it's the oldest saloon in the United States. They served their first drink in 1865. And I went there to see my buddy Ron. He was playing at the San Francisco Blues Festival, and I don't think it's been cleaned since then. But it was a great bar, and of course North Beach has got such a great vibe. So what was San Francisco? You're just starting out as a young couple. You don't have a lot of money, so was it just kind of walking around in the streets and museums and things like that?
We spent 1 year there, and we knew we'd probably move, looking for a place where I'd get my PhD and where Richard would practice law. But it was fantastic. Neither of us knew how to cook, so we had a budget of $10 a night for dinner.
Wow.
So that was an adventure, which works in San Francisco.
Especially in Chinatown, right?
Right.
Yeah. So when did you, what was your next move, and how did you end up in the great state of Minnesota?
We went to New York City for a few years. I was at Columbia University doing my doctoral work, and Richard was practicing law. And then we had a few changes that I'll let Richard talk about, a few job changes, a few moves, and then we finally ended up getting jobs here together.
Wonderful. Now,
Fantastic.
Richard, I think she's kind of hinting that you couldn't hold a job. Is that true?
Yeah, I could not hold a job. I practiced law for 5 years in New York City, Connecticut, and then decided to go into law teaching. So I started at the University of Oregon School of Law in Eugene, Oregon, which is obviously a beautiful place to live.
Oh, my goodness, yes.
And Karen finished her PhD at Columbia, and then Karen took a job teaching music history as a professor at Dartmouth College in Hanover, New Hampshire. So that's a bit of a commute. I ended up moving to the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign, which is where I grew up in central Illinois, around 1998. I'd moved back to where I'd grown up to teach law. Karen moved to Harvard University and taught music history at Harvard about the same time, so we were still commuting. And then we started a family. Our oldest daughter was born in 2003. And that's when we started to think about, well, we actually ought to be in the same city. We have 3 kids now. So I did.
Raising a family works better like that, right?
Well, exactly right. And so we went down to Washington for 2.5 years. I took a sabbatical from teaching and went to work as the ethics lawyer for the Bush administration, which was definitely a difficult job, but an interesting job. And Karen continued at Harvard, and then she came down to work for the National Endowment for the Arts. And then we came to the University of Minnesota, both of us, when the music department gave Karen a very good offer, and I was able to get a job at the law school. So it's worked out very well for us here.
When you were working for Bush, did you ever find yourself in an elevator alone with Dick Cheney?
No, I didn't. I did find myself in the men's room alone with Dick Cheney.
Did it scare the hell out of you?
Yes, he didn't expect that anyone else would be in there with him, but his man, who was supposed to keep people out, had decided to go in there with him to, I guess, to do the same thing. And so I look over, and I'm standing there, and I look over, and there's the Vice President of the United States. And I thought, oh, gee, this is awkward. And he said, I thought there's not supposed to be anybody else in here. And, I say, I just better just finish my business and get out of here. He was not a very humorous person.
Mm-hmm. What was Laura Bush like?
Very friendly.
Yeah.
Very, very friendly.
She seems, that's exactly how she came up. What was George Bush when he wasn't president, he was always president, but like on a weekend, did you ever spend any downtime with him?
No, usually at the White House social functions. And Karen came along a few times, and he always remembered who Karen was, and he always called me the ethics lawyer, and Karen the music professor from Harvard. He always said it that way, Harvard. We had a good time with him.
Actually, there was a little more of a joke to that.
Okay.
I think Bush knew that I taught musicology,
right,
but that I was a failed pianist. So he called me the piano teacher from Harvard.
Well, did you? What part of D.C. did you live in? Georgetown or
Tenleytown? Is that?
Yeah, near Tenley, near the Washington National Cathedral.
Okay.
A number of blocks up from there, a street called Wyndham Place. We rented a flat there, and usual exorbitant rent that you pay in Washington, D.C.
Right. Did you ever get to a play? I played at the Million Mile March in 1999. I was a guest of the Josh Horowitz and the Coalition to Stop Gun Violence, and we spent a couple of fun evenings at the Monocle. Have you ever been there? That's a little bar restaurant right off one of the Senate buildings.
Yes. I've been there for lunch. That's very popular. The Supreme Court clerks and a whole bunch of people.
The night we were there, the night we were there, Henry Hyde was there, Kay Bailey Hutchinson. The line was long to go to the women's room, so she cut in front of me to go to the men's room. I told her I'd watch the door for her, and I have to admit, I stole a martini shaker from there, and I told the bartender, who looked like Robert E. Lee, I said, you are the guy that knows where all the bodies are buried. But if anybody's out there, you got to go to the Monocle. Phenomenal martinis and a great hang. And that's where John Tower used to hang out. It's pictures of JFK and Steve McQueen. It's a very, very storied place. You're listening to the Wall of Power Radio Hour on AM 950. I'm your host, Paul Metsa. I'm very delighted to have Professor Richard Painter, who's running for Senate here in Minnesota, and his lovely wife, Karen. And Richard, I can see why George paid more attention to Karen than you, because she's absolutely lovely. We're going to talk music. We're going to talk politics. We're going to talk family life and whatever the Professor Painters would love to talk about. We're going to listen to a little music and be back then after the messages on the Wall of Power Radio Hour.
Get your vehicle's summertime service done at Rudy Luther Toyota. The last thing you need is a breakdown while on a road trip or heading to the lake. Regardless of where you've purchased your vehicle, Rudy Luther Toyota is your #1 destination for auto service and repair. Routine maintenance or a larger repair, easily schedule your appointment on their website, RudyLutherToyota.com. I trust them. They're fast, courteous, and they do the job right. Get your vehicle summer ready at Rudy Luther Toyota, 5 miles west of downtown Minneapolis on 394.
Saturdays at 1 p.m., you have a chance at a fresh start, a new beginning. Hi, everybody. This is Freddie Bell, host of New Beginnings. Our show features the concerns of America's 78 million baby boomers in employment, finance, health and nutrition, spirituality, and even entertainment. Every day is a chance for a fresh start. Join us Saturdays at 1 p.m. for New Beginnings with Freddie Bell on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
At Pride Institute, being LGBTQ+ is the norm, not the exception. Their highly trained and skilled staff understand your issues and will help you live a happy, healthy life as a proud LGBTQ+ person. They offer you hope to overcome your addiction and live the life you want. Their treatment programs are designed to assist you in developing the knowledge, skills, and attitudes for long-term recovery. Therapy groups include health education, LGBTQ issues, HIV and chronic illness, trauma, grief and loss, transgender support, nicotine recovery, education, and sexual health. Pride Institute offers a residential treatment program, a partial hospitalization program that includes day programming with lodging, and an intensive outpatient program. If you or someone in your life can benefit from guidance and coping skills, life balance, and other tools necessary for long-term recovery, check them out at pride-institute.com or call 800-547-7433 now. Hello, humans. This is me, Ellie Krug with Ellie 2.0 Radio on Monday mornings from 7 to 8 a.m. This Monday, our theme is youth and idealism. I'll talk with Molly Pinta, a 12-year-old girl from Buffalo Grove, Illinois, who is single-handedly working to create the city's first gay pride parade. Listen to how a 12-year-old idealist is leading the way for others. Ellie 2.0, engaging in real on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Hi, friends. I've been talking to you about Minnesota's first green cemetery, Prairie Oaks Memorial Eco Gardens. It's an entirely new way of looking at our last earthly step. Burials are designed to have as little impact on the environment as possible. For many of us, a continuation of the commitment we made during our lifetimes. Let me suggest you go to the website, mngreengraves.com. Explore what it is. Prairie Oaks Memorial Eco Gardens. It's a lovely place, a peaceful place. Minnesota's first green cemetery.
Welcome back to the Wall of Power Radio Hour. This is your host, Paul Metsa. My guests in the studio all night tonight, Mr. and Mrs. Richard and Karen Painter, both professors at the University of Minnesota. Karen, you teach musicology. What exactly, part of classical musicology or everything? What exactly?
Here, I teach mostly 20th century.
Okay.
I teach a freshman seminar every fall called Music in Nazi Germany.
Wow.
And usually the students have no background in music. Maybe they played an instrument some, and they're intrigued by the title. Also, in the course, we discuss related issues in contemporary American life and in the world, and it counts, therefore, as a particular kind of civic ethics requirement for undergraduates. So this is an interesting time to be discussing parallels and related contemporary issues to Nazi Germany. That course enrolls well. Then I teach courses on 20th century music, mostly for the music students, the performers at the School of Music.
You know, I tried to get into the University of Minnesota Music School more to please my parents than anything, because if back then, anyway, if you got a degree, your only real options professionally were playing in an orchestra or teaching, and I was more interested in becoming a performer. But I remembered I was talking to an artist friend of mine, James Reggae, who's a beautiful abstract expressionist, and I said, geez, you've got, hundreds, thousands of years of art. Where do you go to study to learn what you want to do? And he said, I'm just interested in the last 100 years. And so when you said 20th century music, that really responded with me, because I thought, great, my parameters are July 4th, 1900, when Louis Armstrong was born, up to 1999, when Frank Sinatra passed away. I said, those are my two bookends for 20th century American music for me. What? Let's get back to this music in Nazi Germany. So tell us more about it. That's fascinating.
We look at the way classical music students know and want to know more about Mozart, Beethoven, Wagner, the way those great figures were exploited by the Nazis. And then we look at also the repression against Jewish musicians, persecution, and the way that music was used in political contexts in Nazi Germany. We also look at the parallels between music and life. For example, it's thought that Hitler shaped his speeches by drawing inspiration from the opera composer Richard Wagner. So we look at political speeches today and think about them as music. What is the high point? How do they develop? What is the use of repetition in political speeches?
Boy, that is so fascinating. Now, was Wagner, was he a Nazi, or was he just a German composer that Hitler co-opted?
That's a huge question, because he died in the later 19th century. We know that he wouldn't have encountered Nazism. However, he was an anti-Semite, and he became more virulent in his anti-Semitism late in life. Hitler claimed he couldn't have become who he was without the inspiration of Wagner. But then we know the most famous Zionist, Theodor Herzl, who wrote the tract that inspired the foundation of Israel, also said that he couldn't have written that without going to Wagner's operas. So it's a complex question. How do you draw inspiration from music?
Right.
And is the music to blame?
Was that Ride of the Valkyries? What was the one that is most popular, still performed?
That's gained such popularity from Apocalypse Now. It's used there. That's taken from Die Walküre, which is his most popular opera to be pulled out from the whole opera cycle.
That's fascinating. Now, as a child, I was so enamored with the rhythms of Martin Luther King and the way he spoke. And, of course, Martin Luther King was inspired by all the great gospel performers, Mahalia Jackson, Aretha Franklin, and the rest, and everything he heard in church. But I never quite, I thought about it. I guess there was no reason to think about it, that Hitler had his rhythmic language inspired by pieces of music. That's fascinating.
He was a famous orator. It's painful to listen to his speeches today, but we try to listen to different speeches and think about how to analyze them as if they were musical works. If you lived in the 18th century, you would study rhetoric, and delivering speeches would be an important part of your education. And so composers studied rhetoric as well as politicians and just educated individuals.
Wow. Now, Richard, have you learned quite a bit from your wife about music?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And Karen has done work on everything from Mozart up through. She's taught courses on jazz, and so I've learned a lot from her.
What do you have on the boombox over the weekend, or do the kids take that over?
The kids try to take it over.
We have about 2 or 3 competing DJs in the house in terms of what's going on, what's being blasted while they're doing homework.
Karen, what is your, over the years, besides classical music, what other kinds of music do you like, and who are some of your favorite artists?
That's a fantastic question. My taste is somewhat dated. I love Aretha Franklin. I love blues. I share my kids' love for hip-hop. My son also likes country, so I hear a lot of that.
Cool.
And it's growing on me.
Well, it's like, Willie Nelson said, there's only 2 kinds of music in America, the blues and the Star Spangled Banner. Richard, what do you like to listen to?
I love all the classical music and blues, jazz, and I will listen to country with my son William, who enjoys that, and the hip-hop, pop music. My daughter Elizabeth, our oldest likes pop music, so we listen to lots of different types of music.
Karen, do you spend much time? I have Richard Painter running for Senate in Minnesota. He's got my vote. He has for several months. We've got to know each other. He appeared on my Wall of Power TV show just about a month ago, and we got to know each other. And he did that great dumpster campaign ad in the parking lot of Studio 6 where I tape my show in Northeast Minneapolis. Really quickly, we've got about 40 seconds. Karen, do you get out on the road much with Richard, or are you taking care of the house and working at the U?
It's the summer right now, so I'm writing at home. I'm going to be researching at USC next week and taking my youngest daughter and dumping her off in a soccer camp.
What are you researching?
It's on comparative genocides. There's a fantastic visual archive, and I'd like to start drawing on those resources in my teaching. So I got a grant for a couple $1,000 to work in the library for a week.
Wow.
Not bad. Southern California. Good place to be.
How do you keep up with this brilliant woman, Richard? Answer that when we come back on the Wall of Power Radio Hour. We've got Richard and Karen Painter for the whole show tonight.
Not all poor men are honest, not all rich men are thieves. But the rich man owns the orchard, the poor man rakes the leaves. And as the wheel goes around, said all I want to ask is, if the rich man owns the land, why must the poor man pay the taxes? Why does justice go so slow? Slow justice slowly goes. Poor means stop and rich means go. Slow justice slowly goes. They say a woman's work is never done, and do you wonder why? They can beat half as much with double time on the by and by. Well, I ain't no big shot doctor, ain't no big shot doctor's kid, but I can tell you that my mother never lived in Adam's rib. Why does justice go so slow?
The number one source of the Twin Cities gay scene is all digital. Follow Twin Cities Gay Scene on Facebook and Twitter. Sign up for the Scene Shot email blast for weekly updates and chances to win great prizes. No app is needed to view the bi-weekly web editions of Scene. It's GLBTQ media for the mobile generation. Find it all at TwinCitiesGayScene.com. That's TwinCitiesGayScene.com.
Hi, this is Laura Hedlund with Food Freedom Radio. We want a regenerative revolution. What's that? It's a food system that works for water, soil, pollinators, and people. How do we get it? Maybe by being a little more lazy. So this summer, we're looking for lazy good food recipes. We're talking about how do we create a sane, kind food system. Food Freedom Radio, Saturdays at 8 a.m. or anytime on podcast. AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Hi, this is Charlie. My dad is Minnesota's wildly popular and handsome radio host, Matt McNeil. Did I say that right, Dad?
Perfect.
When I got my driver's license, my parents let me drive a Sienna from Rudy Luther Toyota. I love it. It's easy, comfortable, and hauls all my baseball gear. And my parents love the safety. That's why they wanted me in the Sienna.
Thanks to Rudy Luther Toyota, my son is safe as he begins his driving adventure. We're a 2 Sienna family thanks to Rudy Luther Toyota. Visit them today in Golden Valley at 169 and 394.
Northeast Minneapolis is known for its creativity, and you'll know exactly why when you eat at Hazel's Northeast. Their creatively prepared comfort food will have you coming back week after week. Breakfasts like biscuits and gravy, granola pancakes, and brisket hash. For lunch, homemade soup and one of the best Reubens in town. And don't miss the daily risotto or Chef Ali's ever-changing dinner specials. Come on in. Bring the whole family. Hazel's Northeast delivers real good food. Family owned at 29th and Johnson in Minneapolis.
Next time on Philosophy Talk, radical markets, solutions for a gilded age.
Markets have given us growing inequality, a rise in populism, and decay of democracy.
So we should limit the market through regulation.
But what if instead of shrinking the market, we expanded it?
You're suggesting that we haven't let markets go far enough?
Radical markets, next time on Philosophy Talk.
Philosophy Talk, every Sunday at 8 a.m. and again at 2 p.m. on AM 950.
This is Dan Brooks, Senior Vice President and Financial Advisor with RBC Wealth Management. For the past 19 years, I've been managing wealth for individuals, institutions, and corporate retirement plan sponsors. Throughout my career, I have seen common traits in successful investors. They include the courage to be diversified, the willingness to work with a professional, the discipline to follow a plan, and patience. I welcome the opportunity to help contribute to your financial success. Call me at 612-371-2396.
With your AM 950 weather, this is Eric Nelson. Tonight will be mostly clear with a low around 63. Sunday, sunny with a high near 82. Sunday night, partly cloudy with a low around 66. Monday has a chance of showers with a high near 82 and a low around 63. EatLocalMinnesota.com's restaurant of the week is Milda's Cafe. This unique local restaurant offers one-of-a-kind hot dish specials every day and authentic finished pasties on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Located at 1720 Glenwood Avenue in Minneapolis, just east of Penn.
Welcome back to the Wall of Power Radio Hour. I hope you're enjoying the show. My guests are my new friends, Richard Painter and Karen Painter, both professors at the UofM, both brilliant people and great moms and mom and dad and great civic people as well. You know, Richard, I'd met your son and your daughter a few weeks ago when you were on the TV show, and I asked your son last night, I said, I bet you can't wait till this whole thing gets over. And his look like it can't come soon enough. And what I want to say is I was a son of my father, besides selling real estate and insurance, he started out his civic career on the school board, then 3 terms of the city council, then 2 terms as mayor of a small town of Virginia, Minnesota. At the time, it was probably 7,500 people. My mother was very civic oriented. There's a garden called the Metsa Memorial Garden on Bailey's Lake in Virginia. She also started the Land of the Loon Art Festival, which is now in its 42nd or 43rd year. But I remember I didn't see much of my dad. He was, work a lot, and then almost every night he was at a meeting. And I remember one thing in particular, his first or second term as mayor. He told me about a call he got at 6:30 in the morning from a lady at the senior high-rise calling to say why she's not getting very good reception on her cable TV. Small towns like that. But to my larger point is a campaign like this running for Senate has got to be all-consuming.
Well, it keeps him busy, that's for sure. William, my son, he's accompanied me a couple of trips. We had one up north to Ely and Grand Marais and International Falls, Duluth. William had a good time of that. And then I think he may be going with me again to Moorhead tomorrow. So, I want to. We've got 3 children, and we keep trying to keep everything going with all 3 of them.
Wow.
It's a challenge, of course, with the Senate campaign, but it's important that I do this, and I think the kids appreciate that, and they're learning something as well about the importance of civic engagement.
No doubt. Karen, what do you see as your part in the whole thing? You're really the glue that's kind of keeping it all together. I mean, I pulled into the parking lot, the radio station tonight, and Richard was doing an interview with another California radio station, I guess. But you've got to be a big part of kind of trying to schedule the whole family. Plus, you've got your own career. You're studying and you're writing and thinking. And how's it all work?
It works. I think everyone has a balance between a family and work life. Probably for children these days, it's parents are more involved. Often, I think we're helicopter parents. So there is a balancing act that goes on. One challenge, but I think an important one, is getting kids to know what's going on and caring about it.
Right.
And starting around the 2016 election, a few months before, Richard started having a lot of interviews, and that was a challenge for the kids. I think there was a Halloween when he was away for 15 hours doing interviews back to back. And, of course, that's a time that you want to take your kids around trick-or-treating.
Right, absolutely.
At any rate, explaining issues so that they get it and they care about it. Occasionally it's hard that a big issue means that their dad's away for a while, but they understand how important this is. And peers at school, too, are caring more about politics at a young age.
Well, first of all, I was going to say Halloween because my birthday is November 1st, the day after Halloween. And like I tell a few of my ex-girlfriends, it's easy to remember it's All Saints' Day, November 1st. But every day these days in the White House is Halloween, right?
Well, that's for sure. And that Halloween 2016 was a day or two after James Comey, the director of the FBI, had released that letter about Hillary Clinton's email. This letter said absolutely nothing of any import, but was used by the Republicans in the House of Representatives to argue that the FBI was reopening the investigation of Hillary Clinton. It was a complete disaster, and that may very well have thrown the election along with Vladimir Putin's efforts. So I certainly had to go in and do a lot of TV interviews and discuss what was going on and how the FBI had really blown it. I'm shocked to see people now saying that the FBI was somehow siding with Clinton against Trump. That's just ridiculous. But Halloween that year, we talk about the spooky part of Halloween, was election night.
Oh, my
I
goodness.
was amazed that we elected that man president of the United States, and it's been a struggle ever since for many Americans.
I went down to the Democratic headquarters at the Hilton where they were having the election night party, and my girlfriend, Amy, I was looking at her, I don't know, we were watching Melania and Donald on TV, and I said, Amy, part your hair in the middle. And I said, you could do Melania with some eyeshadow. So we went down that night. I dressed as Donald Trump. I got an orange wig. I had pockets full of fake money. And the night started out really well. It was kind of funny for a while. And then when you could see all of the states coming in, going for Trump, you could feel his pallor fall over the room. And it was about as depressing a night as I can remember in politics, maybe in my lifetime. With the exception of course, the JFK assassination and things like that. But in terms of pure election night fright, my God, that was it. So when, Richard Painter, did you decide to become a Democrat?
Well, I gave up on the Republican Party. I've been for years trying to work with the Republicans. I've been a professor most of my life, so I never had to run for office. But trying to explain to Republicans that moving back toward the center is what they ought to do and focus on the issues people care about, reforming the banks, and what's going on Wall Street was a big issue for me. That's what I was writing about and giving speeches about for a very long time, and then government ethics and campaign finance reform. But the Republican Party has gone very far off the right end of the political spectrum, obsessing on all the social issues and trying to ban abortion and try and, help the NRA put more guns on the streets. It's crazy. And then with Donald Trump, they just say, well, unless you're loyal to Donald Trump, you can't be a Republican involved in the Republican Party. So the idea of being a moderate or liberal Republican just isn't workable in this environment. So we've had a lot of people like former Governor Arne Carlson. He supports my campaign. He was a Republican governor of Minnesota, but he's telling everybody, vote for Democrats in the fall. But make sure in the primary that you get in there in the primary on or before August 14, get in there and vote, and make sure that you have some good people in the Democratic line. Well, I feel that I could do something for the people of the state of Minnesota, do something about Donald Trump, getting him out of there, put in a single-payer health system, protect the environment, stand up to the sulfide mining companies that want to pollute our waterways in northern Minnesota, and deal with the climate change issue. So I have issues that I think are very, very important, and the Democratic Farmer Labor Party is certainly willing to listen, and a lot of people in the DFL do care very much about those issues. So that was the natural place for me to run.
How do you feel the campaign's going so far? I know you've been wanting to debate Tina Smith, who the DFL is behind, who took over Al Franken's seat, but she's not biting. You're not being able to get her in the same room.
So far, no go. I'm hoping that Senator Smith changes her mind, and it'll go a long way toward fighting the role of money in politics and the Citizens United decision, the rest of it. If candidates, instead of relying on TV ads, would use debates to get their points across, and if voters would insist on debates, that would go a long way as well. But right now, there's a lot of temptation for candidates who can raise a lot of money, and Senator Smith certainly can raise a lot of money, and others do, to run the TV ads and then avoid the debates. And I think that's unfortunate.
You know what I was thinking last night? Because now there's this whole issue with Russia funneling money through the NRA to Republicans, and you see there's very few Republicans that didn't take NRA money. And it was really millions of dollars, and I'm not sure exactly how many members there are in the NRA, but I've always wondered how the NRA could raise all of those tens of millions of dollars from their membership base. It just doesn't seem mathematically possible.
I don't think so. There's a lot of money going into the NRA and affiliated groups from various mysterious sources, and certainly the Russians figured that out. They sent a special agent over here, the one of the spy that was uncovered last week, who would snuggle up to various NRA people and politicians, and
literally snuggle up.
Oh yeah. She's a real piece of work there. It's really, the way the Russians will try and infiltrate organizations, whether it's the NRA or the Trump campaign, it's shocking that we aren't more aware of this in the United States. And I wrote an op-ed about the NRA back in 2012 in the New York Times called the NRA Protection Racket, talking about how they try and dominate the Republican Party and throw people out who don't agree with them. But I never imagined there was a KGB connection or ex-KGB connection with the NRA. But I guess that's what's going on now.
Well, and now they have convicted felon Oliver North running the show.
Oh, yes. You always see these old faces come back. Roger Stone is another one from the Nixon years. Roger Stone's got a Nixon tattoo on his back, and he is now a political operative working for Donald Trump, and there's a lot of connections with the Russians, and he's the one who was tweeting about Al Franken's situation before anybody else knew anything about it. A lot of these people, they've been untrustworthy for decades. They're always up to something, try to take people down who are their enemies, dirty tricks, Tricky Dicky Nixon was known for that. But Donald Trump, I'm telling you, is much worse than anything we ever saw under Nixon.
Well, you know, I've been a lifelong Iron Range Prairie populist Democrat, and I always thought one of my gripes with the Republican Party, they go, get government off your backs, limited government, but they're the first ones that want to get into your bloodstream in your bedroom. We've got Richard and Karen Painter on the Wall of Power Radio Hour. This is your host. We've got one more segment. We're going to get back to Karen and lighten things up a little bit after these songs.
This is Chad, owner of AM 950, here to tell you about Snap Construction. They're experts in roofing, siding, window, and insurance restoration. They have energy-efficient products available for both residential and commercial properties. This spring, when we needed a company to take a look at a problem with our roof, I called the company I knew I could trust, Snap Construction. I've known Ryan, the owner at Snap Construction, for years, so I knew I could trust him. Don't just take my word for it. Check out their reviews online. They are arguably the most well-reviewed exterior contractor online in the metro area. Over the years, Ryan has always said the same thing to me about his work. If we build it, shouldn't we be held accountable for the work indefinitely? He backed that statement up years ago when Snap Construction was a pioneer in offering a lifetime craftsmanship guarantee on all their work. For a free estimate or general questions, call the locally owned company AM 950 Trust, Snap Construction at 612-333-SNAP. That's 612-333-SNAP, or find them online at snapconstruction.com. They have financing options available.
Crazy about pets? We are too. The Pet Connection Show is a great venue for fun, informative, and creative conversations about pets. Join myself, Kathy Menard, and Dr. Nicole Parole, along with guests who are leaders in the dynamic and growing pet industry, as we discuss healthcare, relationships, behaviors, and even political issues as they relate to our pets. So come, sit, stay for the Pet Connection Show, Sundays 11 a.m. to noon on AM 950 Radio, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
The number one source of the Twin Cities gay scene is all digital. Follow Twin Cities Gay Scene on Facebook and Twitter. Sign up for the Scene Shot email blast for weekly updates and chances to win great prizes. No app is needed to view the bi-weekly web editions of Scene. It's GLBTQ media for the mobile generation. Find it all at TwinCitiesGayScene.com. That's TwinCitiesGayScene.com.
Enjoy a delicious home-cooked breakfast or lunch away from the kitchen at Milda's Cafe, now open 7 days a week. Milda's Cafe has been cooking up family favorites since 1964. Grab a coffee and sit down for a delicious Philly scramble, house-made rolls, or Denver omelet. Stop in for lunch where you'll find authentic Finnish pasties every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Open weekdays 6 to 3, weekends 8 to 2. Milda's Cafe on Glenwood Avenue, 4 blocks east of Penn.
Next time on Philosophy Talk, radical markets, solutions for a gilded age.
Markets have given us growing inequality, a rise in populism, and decay of democracy.
So we should limit the market through regulation.
But what if instead of shrinking the market, we expanded it?
You're suggesting that we haven't let markets go far enough?
Radical markets, next time on Philosophy Talk.
Philosophy Talk, every Sunday at 8 a.m. and again at 2 p.m. on AM 950.
The Wall of Power Radio Hour. This is your host, Paul Metsa. My guest all night tonight, Karen and Richard Painter. I'm so delighted that they could make it. They're both very busy, and so it's an honor to have them here. We were talking on the break about what the Wall of Power Radio Hour audience would be interested in this last segment, and I told Karen and Richard, I have an audience with a pretty wide range of tastes. And I brought up a fellow that Richard Donahue knew, a guy named John Kiriakou, who was a CIA agent who in 2007 came out and said we were waterboarding al-Qaeda. He was also an ABC News analyst. I believe he worked with the Senate Foreign Intelligence Committee to a certain degree. Did 3 years in prison. We're still in touch. It was funny how I knew he worked for the CIA. His brother Emmanuel played guitar for me. So I met John at Emmanuel's wedding in Newcastle, Pennsylvania. And I was watching TV one night, and it said, breaking news, CIA agent comes out and says, we're waterboarding al-Qaeda. And it's John Kiriakou. I had no idea he was with the CIA. You two must have met some interesting people over the years, both at Harvard and for Yale, and now with Richard running for the Minnesota Senate. Who are some of the most interesting people you've met in your life, either in college or just bump into in the street?
What a good question. One time I was at a music festival in Germany, and I managed to go backstage for a light supper, and Angela Merkel was sitting next to me.
Really?
So she was then not chancellor. It was slightly before that point. So we had a debate about the production of Wagner that we saw.
Really?
And I was trying to flatter the host of the dinner, who was related to Richard Wagner, the grandson, and she was a harsh critic.
Really?
It was a little bit of a lightweight production, and she said that opera should have a point. It should have a message, something philosophical or political. So I lost that debate.
And I imagine you speak very, very good German.
I do. I lived in Germany some as a child. Wow. I make a lot of mistakes, but I can speak pretty fast and understand most things.
Wie geht's?
Ganz gut, danke.
And that, thanks to Miss Corpy, that's about as much as I remember from high school. Richard, I stumbled on you on MSNBC or CNN. You're all over the board. And how in the last couple of years, who are some people that you've met that you didn't think you'd get along with that you do?
Well, I've met a lot of people in Minnesota politics recently. Angie Craig is running for the seat in the 2nd Congressional District, who I very much like. Dean Phillips up in the 2nd Congressional District, the 3rd Congressional District. And just a lot of interesting people who are very much engaged in politics here and trying to take on what's going on in the Trump administration and also help people here in Minnesota and with our economy. One of my very good friends is a man who was President Barack Obama's ethics lawyer named Norman Eisen. And I met him a number of years ago. When he came back from being the ambassador to the Czech Republic. But we worked together to address ethics issues during the election and then in the Trump administration after that. And we served as president and vice president of Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, a watchdog group that sought to, in a bipartisan fashion, bring Washington to heel and hold our public officials accountable. And one of the most important things for me is making sure that ethics issues in Washington and around the country are addressed in a bipartisan manner. And I certainly learned a lot from Norman Eisen about that.
Now, is it Norm? There's another guy who's kind of in that field who's got some Minnesota roots. Is it Norm Ornstein?
Ornstein, yes.
Have you met him?
Yes, once I met him. He's at the American Enterprise Institute,
right.
I believe.
But he's got Minnesota roots, right?
Oh, yes, he does. Yes.
Well, we've got a history. We have Supreme Court justices, Hugo Black, Earl Warren from Minnesota, Hubert Humphrey, Eugene McCarthy, Paul Wellstone. Boy, you could go long and far naming all the great politicos we've had from the state of Minnesota. And, Richard, I really have a feeling that you get it, and I think you get not only the spirit of Minnesota, but I think you are pointing in the right direction where this country wants to go. And I'm proud to call you a fellow Minnesotan.
Well, thank you. And things have changed over the time. The Supreme Court once had two Minnesotans on it, the Chief Justice Warren Burger and Justice Blackmun. Earl Warren may have been California, at least he was governor of California at one point. But the two Minnesotans were both Republicans, Warren Burger and Justice Blackmun, and they both concurred in the majority opinion Roe versus Wade, which was 7-2. And the notion that somehow the Republican Party needed to be committed to overturning that. I know that's been a couple of decades in the party, but it's a fundamentally different approach to government than that which the Minnesota Republican Party had for many years, and Republicans around the country, which is that government shouldn't be interfering in people's private decisions. And the small government model that was popular with people like Arne Carlson, who's our former governor. Political parties change, people change over time, but the challenges we confront as a society are very serious. I'd say more serious now than ever before, and it's going to be critically important we all get out and vote.
And my vote is going to go to Professor Richard Painter. We got about a little less than a minute left. Karen Painter, thank you so much. We've got to get to know each other better. I'd love to come over to your house, listen to some of your music, borrow some of your books. I'm sure you both have incredible libraries. What do you love about Minnesota, Karen?
I love the outdoors. We live in Mendota Heights. We have almost 5 acres, and I love riding outside, walking our dogs.
And how many dogs do you have?
We have 2 dogs.
Oh, nice. What are their names?
Goalie is the large one, almost 100 pounds, and Ginger is the teeny dog.
Goalie and Ginger, I'm sure they're a lovely pair. I'm a big dog guy. Richard Painter, Karen Painter, thank you so much for being part of the Wall of Power radio hour tonight. Richard, I wish you the best, and I'm with you every step of the way.
Thank you so much.
Someday, the high and the mighty will fall. There will be no power brokers, the wall of power will fall. And someday, the high and the mighty will fall. There will be